My great respects to all viewers of this program, organized jointly by Sri Raghavendra Swami Mutt of Mantralaya, Swami Vivekananda Yoga Anusandhana Samsthana, Jigani, Bangalore, and Haridasa National Foundation of Bangalore. Dear viewers, this is a special occasion on which you have the opportunity to listen to many great scholars speaking on various aspects of the Ramayana. So far as I am concerned in this program, I am given to understand that I have to speak on two important national aspects of this wonderful epic. Number one, leadership qualities as represented in the Ramayana. And number two, the social, spiritual, cultural values of Ramayana which are relevant for us today, even today. I am afraid I am not in a position to separate the two topics. I may have to intermix them and conjointly speak to you at the same time. You should bear with me because Ramayana is a passion for me. It's not a mere novel, it's not a mere story, it's not a mere epic. It is not even a mere grantha, dharma grantha. It is the source of all that our rishis have given to us in the Upanishads and the Vedas. It represents the total ethos of this country that has been built over thousands of years, and therefore, without meaning injustice to the topic, I shall try to be as brief as possible, but as concise and precise also as possible. There are any number of Rama temples all over the country, any number of Hanuman temples all over the country, and a new attempt is being made to revive the great temple of Vikramaditya at the Ayodhya site after so many hundreds of years. And this occasion, therefore, is of special value for us. Someone very cynically said very recently, what if one temple goes, there are other temples? Well, you could put it to Rama like this, what if one Sita is lost? There are other hundreds of women who are ready to marry him. That is not our ethos. That is not the Hindu ethos. And therefore, a temple is a temple, the birthplace is the birthplace, you cannot change those things. And therefore, today, we shall jump into these topics at once. What is the ethos, social, political, spiritual ethos that the Ramayana represents? To be very brief, it represents a highly positive, charged view of life. A view of life without which you cannot rise, either as an individual or as a social member or as a nation as a whole, something that uplifts you, that kind of value. What is it? I said it is a positive outlook of life. When Rama descended, Vishnu descended as Rama, Valmiki says, the Veda descended as Ramayana. Veda Vedye Pare Pumsi Jate Dashrathatmaje Veda Pracher Sadasi Sakshad Ramayanatmana. And therefore, people who are not lucky enough to read the Veda, but who are lucky enough to hear the Ramayana rightly interpreted, should know what to expect from the Ramayana, the ethos of the Ramayana, I said. Now, you will not understand what I mean unless you have a contrast. In the world history of today, there are religions and religions, there are creeds and creeds, which I am afraid I have to damn them, I have to label them as negative creeds, even to the extent of calling them cynical creeds. Some religions say that a man is a born sinner. Now, with this kind of outlook, what can you teach for that man as a source of improvement? Shunvantu sarve amrutasya putraha, says the Yajurveda Samhita. You are like sparks of fire coming from the great fuel, from the great fire called God, and therefore it is our duty to shine ourselves to the best extent possible, fulfill ourselves possible, and our goal is Amrutatva Prapti, not merely moksha. Moksha is a negative concept, release from something. Amrutatva is fulfillment, attainment of immortality. Now, this is the goal to which Ravana was opposed. This is the goal to which Vali was opposed. This is the goal to which Maricha was opposed. This is the goal to which Shurpanaka was opposed. The goal which Tataka hated. And a whole host of people down from Chitrakuta up to Sri Lanka, all these people believed in a negative, cynical concept. Many of our viewers may not know the meaning of the word cynical. In ancient Greece, which was a conglomeration of confusing ideals, there was one school of thought called cynicism. And the cynics believed that there was no future for life, the past was meaningless, and therefore life is scheduled, it is destined for misery, and therefore life is worthless living. It is good to sleep, better to die. The best of all is not to be born at all. This is cynicism. Ravana did not care for any Rishi ideals. He was a great scholar in the Veda. He knew all the Vedas. It is said that he sang the entire Samveda when his fingers were caught under the Himalayas, under the Kailas, when he tried to lift it up, when Shankara cursed him. Now, such a great scholar had a pervert view of life, and when he says to Sita, look here, I am not doing anything wrong, I am just doing what your scriptures have permitted me. What is it? Abduct a woman, rape her, use her as your concubine. This is permitted in Manusmriti, says Ravana. Devil quoting scripture. Literally, devil quoting scripture. Arshoyam Dayavanishyantaha. And he offers some kind of a bribe also to Sita by saying, if you rise into my bed, I will offer half of my kingdom to Janaka. If you think that Janaka would be ashamed of what you do, I shall offer half of my kingdom. Now today, my dear friends, do you not see this kind of a disvalue pervading all over the country today? You call it Bhraštachar, but show me a province in India, show me a leader who is not corrupt in this sense. Some people openly say it is our right to accept what people give us. If they don't give, we will command them, we will demand them. It has become a way of life. Now, this was the challenge that Rama had to face. Why did Rama have to face this problem? The ancient dynasty of the Ikshvakus and the solar race were great kings, very, very great kings. They believed in, as Kalidasa says, Tyagaya Samrutarthanam, Satyaya Mitabhashanam, Yashase Vijigeshunam, Yogenante Tanutyajam, Raghunam Anvayam Vakshe, Tanuvag Vibhavopisan, Tyagaya Samrutarthanam. You collect money, you collect property, you accumulate wealth, Tyagaya. It is to be distributed among the people. What you get from the people, you give it back to the people. Tyagaya Samruta. Money collection by right taxation is not a sin. A king cannot produce money by printing quota notes. A king has to collect the money. In the days of Ravana, it was 1/6 of the produce of land. Even the rishis offered 1/6 of their tapas. It is said in the Aranyakanda. Tyagaya Samrutarthanam, Satyaya Mitabhashanam. The Raghu kings spoke very, very little words. They were not boisterous, irresponsible like some of our ministers today. Satyaya Mitabhashanam, Yashase Vijigeshunam. They would go out for conquering other people, not for the sake of just conquering or annexing their kingdoms as China is doing today, whether by commerce or by open war, this or that. See, it is to quell rebellion, It is to quell unwanted opposition to the great ideals held by the king. Rama says to Vali, look here, you may be a tribal, you may be on a hilltop, but the place where you stand, the kingdom that you rule belongs to Bharata. Ikshvakunamyam bhumi tam palayati dharmatma Bharato dharmavattaraha. Vayancha, we are people subordinate to Bharata. We have been traveling all over this country to see that Dharma prevails everywhere. Dharma prevails everywhere. Dharma was the ideal. Dharma was the ideal. The late Sri Rama Jois used to comment very frequently that if there is one word totally missing anywhere in the Constitution of India today, it is the word Dharma. Many intelligent people were there at the time of framing the Constitution. I don't know what inhibitions prompted them or conquered them. Nobody, the word secularism was surreptitiously introduced into the Constitution during the emergency by Indira Gandhi. It did not occur to that great lady that this country stands on Dharma. Ikshvakuna vayam bhumi tam palayati dharmatma bharataha dharmavattaraha. Dharmavat, he is much greater than myself in observing Dharma. And what is Dharma? Dharma is not religion as many people wrongly think. Dharma is the primordial laws of nature that God has ordained. Like the Ritu Chakra, we take the seasonal cycle. Rains come in their own proper scheduled time. Suns and moons and other planets, they rotate around the sun in their own orbits. The earth rotates around her own self and then also around the sun. I don't know who put the earth under this orbit. There is a dharma for the earth. There is a dharma for the river. A river is born on a hilltop or a mountain top. It joins the ocean. But in between, it gives plenty of water for irrigation for multifarious purposes of human beings. Dharma. If there is dharma for nature, man who is a child of nature also must be subjected to dharma. And therefore, Rama asks Vali, ask your own heart, ask your own conscience, and tell me whether you are not violating that dharma by abducting the wife of your own brother, who should have been subject to your protection, subject to your affection. You are using it as a mere concubine, and therefore Vali had no reply. Vali was nowhere in comparison with Ravana. 100 Valis put together would produce one Ravana. Ravana's amour, Ravana's love for sex had no bounds at all. He had innumerable women of the greatest handsome variety in the harem, as Hanuman observes in the Sundarakanda. He was not satisfied with any lady. He wanted to go on and see, sex scandals were not new. They are not new in India. They are as old as Mahabharata. They are as old as Ramayana. Even much earlier in the Veda, there are references with the story of Nahusha, for example, in the story of Yayati, for example. It's a human weakness. But it is dharma which enables you to overcome the animal in you, the brute in you, to become a manava, to become a manushya, to become a man. See, these are all words connected with manu. The word man comes from the word manu. Manushya, manava, manaviyata. Very often, glibly, we talk of these words without realizing that unless you follow manu in some sense or the other, you will not be a man. You will be a mere animal. And therefore, this cynicism, I said, how do you label Ravana and Vali, Maricha, other people as cynics? That is one way. I shall shock you by using another term. These were the greatest terrorists of those days. Where does terrorism get roots? When a man becomes a brute, when he is not satisfied with the sexual urge, when he is not satiated with the wealth he has accumulated after destroying cities and Rishyashrams and so on, he becomes a mere brute, and it becomes a way of life for him to torture other people for its own sake and to achieve pleasure by sadistic methods. That is terrorism. I mentioned the religions of the desert earlier. Now see whether it is the the one of the three the desert religions. I don't want to mention them. They all believe in world conquest. In India, in our country, Sri Ramachandra never believed in world conquest for its own sake. Conquest was unavoidable when here and there people left out dharma and they had to be brought under the umbrella of one dharma eka chakradipatya. Monarchy here was not in the sense of Hitlerian monarchy or the Mussolinian monarchy or the Chinese type of single person ruling. So communism is a kind of monarchy. You don't use that word. One person at the top controlling and ruling entire world, that is monarchy. In India, Chanakya says in the Arthashastra, it is pluralistically determined monism. Pluralistically determined monism. A king simply executes whatever wishes are there by the people, unfulfilled, and he tries to fulfill them by virtuous, by righteous, by upholding dharma, and therefore it is the duty of the government to go to the people, not the pitiable condition of the people going to the government, to the Vidhan Sauda every day and being disappointed that the minister is not in the chair and so on. This is totally alien to our culture. Ramayana becomes relevant to us because of the great example of Rama as a leader. Failed leaders are Ravana and Kumbhakarna and Marisha, Vali, Virada, Kabanda. These are all failed leaders. You hear of failed states today. You must hear of failed leaders. A man does not become a leader simply because of inheritance, simply because of a dynasty, simply because of the might, the physical might he has. He must acquire the righteous ways of administration. The righteous ways of administration. He must be groomed properly for it. Rama was groomed for it. Let me introduce you to another aspect of this. How was a king prepared in this country? How was a Rama prepared? How was a Dasharatha prepared? How was an Ikshvaku prepared? There were great advisors. I am hesitant to use the word Purohit. Vasishtha and Vamadeva were Purohits. The word Purohit is a misused term. Purohit does not mean a priest conducting a death sacrifice or this marriage, this and that. He is ritualist. No. A Purohit is, I have written it elaborately in my books on Veda Samskriti Parichaya, and you see it in my dozen books on the Ramayana, Ramayana Patra Prapancha, Ramayana the Mahaprasangagalu, and so on. You see, a Purohit is an unpaid minister, a minister who owed nothing to the king, but who advised him without fear or favor what is right or wrong for the entire nation. There were only two people who advised Dasharatha, Vasishto, Vamadevascha. There were 8 executives, Amatyas, Vasishto, Vamadevascha, Jabalihi, Athakashyapaha, Katyayanaha, Swajnascha, Gautamaha. Why do you want hundreds of ministers? This is a misnomer. I mean, the word minister is a misnomer because they don't minister to the public needs. They minister unto themselves, as Shakespeare says. A man who ministers himself is a mischievous monkey, and therefore the country has to be groomed. A leader has to be groomed. Anyone can become a minister is something which violates the primordial principle of this country. Anyone does not matter. Anyone can become a ruler, provided he fulfills the qualities required of the leadership. He must acquire the leadership. Like your IAS people, ICS people, IPS people, see, they are groomed. The prime minister has to be groomed. A chief minister has to be groomed. A leader has to be prepared. That is Rajasoya. Raja Soyate Anena. Ashwamedha was another kind of sacrifice where the horsepower, the royal power of the king used to move about in all directions so that wherever it moved, the chieftains, the other subjects either had to pay the taxes or had to fight with the army. This was the way of quelling rebellions. And then the king would be established in his own place provided he doesn't violate the norms. Example, Wali was eliminated, but Sugriva was placed in the same kingdom. Let me give you one great example. Rama was a great leader because, as a crown prince, even before he was crowned, he knew the entire history of this country. He knew the entire present situation of this country also. Let me continue this with a small break. Scrupulously, you will have to notice some important points which many other people who read the Ramayana as a matter of religious routine miss. What is it? There was an attempt by Dasharatha to crown Rama. Two foreign women who were alien to the culture of this country, Kaikeyi and Manthara, they spoiled the whole scheme. Rama was exiled. Dasharatha had to breathe his last. The country had no king for a short time. There was a Rajakata, there was anarchy. Bharata would not accept the place of Rama. Fortunately, the story went on smoothly then onwards. Had not been Bharata what he was, we would have had a reverent Ramayana. Bharata was a great leader. Kam Ramayana says Bharata was much greater than Rama. And even 100 Ramas would not make one Bharata, says Kausalya, while blessing Bharata. He would not accept the kingdom. He calls it stealth. When the elder brother is alive and he has gone out fulfilling a desire of the father, let me not become a Rajya Apaharaka. This is the word he uses. Okay. Now, see it from the natural, the weak human point of view. Here was a prince who was about to be coronated, but coronation slipped off his hands. And therefore, would you call this adversity or opportunity? This was adversity. Tomorrow he was to be crowned. The same moment he was exiled. Another person of today in his place, in the place of Rama, would have committed suicide, or he would have let loose all the dogs of hell, so that the country would literally go to dogs. It didn't happen. What did Rama do? He converted adversity into opportunity. That is a leader. Like Modi of today, who converted all the adversities. He did not say one bad word about his enemies, about the people who tried to oust him, who tried to besmear him dark, who tried to smudge him, who tried to propagate all sorts of fabricated stories against him. One man against 100 odds in this country, he was able to use the opportunity. What opportunity? The opportunity that a Vajpayee could not use, the opportunity that a poor Nehru could never imagine he would solve, and in between a dozen prime ministers who could not understand the problems of this country. How was it that Modi was able to solve the problem of Kashmir? How was it he was able to solve the problem of Ram Janmabhoomi? How is it he is taking up the problem of Kashi Vishwanath? How is it he is taking up the problem of Mathura Sri Krishna Janmabhoomi? And one uniform civil code shortly coming up. You see, all these urgent problems of the country created by a variety of factors, adverse factors, he is now able to convert into the advantage of this country, not for himself. That was what Rama did in those days. I'm sorry I had to deviate and bring the example of a Modi, because without which you would not understand the quality of a leader. Here was Dasharatha, his great father, who could run a chariot in a 10 directions, 100 directions, a very great warrior, but unfortunately, whose whole lifetime was spent in fighting the rebels in the northwest of this country. That has always been a problem with this country. The northwest. There were the Gandharvas or the Gandharas, the Kekayas and the Mudras, the Khiljis and the Tughlaqs, Babur, Genghis Khan, and Timur and many other people, they infested this country, invaded this country from the northwest. This problem was there in the time of Ramayana too. There was Ashwapati, who would later on become the father-in-law of Dasharatha, who was ruling over Gandhara in those days, and he wanted the help of Dasharatha. Dasharatha spent most of his time there quelling the rebels. And even after Rama was crowned, the rebellion continued. Rama posted Bharata to the northwest of this country, where he founded two great cities, many of you may not know. It is there in the Uttarakhanda, Takshashila and Pushkalavati. They were built by the two sons of Bharata. Taksha and Pushkala were the sons of Bharata. They very ably commanded the entire situation. But Dasharatha, going back to the unfortunate story of Dasharatha, he had to neglect the rest of the South India. What was the South India of those days? It was called Dandakaranya. What was Dandakaranya? Dandakaranya was like South India being ruled by LTTE people, DMK people. They are the inheritors of this unholy tradition. I'm sorry to give you modern parallels, because without which you will not see the relevance of Ramayana today. So Rama said to himself, and he assured his brother, Lakshmana, angry brother, and he told his affectionate citizens, look here, I'll come back after 14 years. 14 good years to bring the entire South India back into the mainstream of culture of this country. 14 years is not a small thing. 500 years is not a small thing for a Ram Janmabhoomi temple to come up. 14 years is a very lucky period. And therefore, from Chitrakuta onwards, downwards, he had to pacify great sacrifices like Sharabhanga, Sutikshna, Atri, and many hosts of rishis, because these rishis are the people who founded our culture without giving their name to this culture. Jointly, they propounded certain great values embroidered in the Veda. And unless you respected the rishis and assured them protection, assured them freedom, so that they could practice their austerities and so on, unless you give them protection, culture would not survive. That was the first target of Rama. Rishinam abhayam dattam. He gave the assurance, I shall see to it that no rishi is punished or burnt or eaten away. Rest assured, he gives this assurance in the Dandakaranya, in the first chapter of the Aranyakanda. Sita protests. Sita, being the daughter of Janaka, a Kshatriya woman, says, sir, you are a very enlightened person. There are supposed to be three weaknesses in a king. That is, having an eye on a married woman other than the wife, and trying to inflict suffering on people who have not asked for it, and so on. But what have these people done to you? Why do you promise the rishis this kind of protection? Rama says, Apyaham jivitam jahyam tvam vasite salakshmanam natu pratigyam samshrutya brahmanebhyo visheshataha. See, this is the kind of ideal I would like our present rulers to have. Apyaham jivitam jahyam. I can even give up my life. Or if it comes to it, tvam vasite. I shall give up something dearer to my soul, dearer than myself, Sita, or even Lakshmana. But once I promise protection to the rishis, I shall never give it up. The duty of a king is to protect. Giving this charity, that charity, various bhagyas, that is not the duty of a king. A king cannot squander away the money he collected by taxes. He has to give public protection and establishment of peace in the country. And therefore, his main target was Vali and Ravana. These were cynics, as I said, because they believed in no values. Did I not say this before? A cynic is one who does not believe in values. A cynic is one who is an opportunist at the worst, and who is a terrorist at the most. Between a terrorist and an opportunist, you can see most of our politicians of Bengal, of Tamil Nadu, Kerala. You are seeing daily murders every day. All these are cynics because they don't see light. They don't see a bright vision for the country in the future. Wali was a pakka womanizer, if I may use that word. Wali was a womanizer. He had no royal duties. He had no agricultural policy. He had no policy of any other kind, like the Mughal kings who ruled this country. Their only job was to abduct women, kill people, and always wage wars. In the Mughal history of this country, and even up to Tipu Sultan, you see only this. Did Tipu Sultan have an agricultural policy? Did he have a program for the protection of the people? What public uh, achievements have there been in the history? You just see. This was what Ravana was in those days. This was what Wali was in those days. And therefore, Wali had to be eliminated. And even here, there was a political diplomacy, a stroke that Rama followed, like the surgical strike that Modi ji followed with Pakistan. What was that strike? He studied through the words of Sugriva how much evil, how much potency for evil did Wali possess. Was Wali alone in the evil? Was he supported by his own ministers? Was he popular in the evil among his own people? See, some of our politicians, each of them have a private army. Somebody is jailed. After 6 months, 10 months, the person jailed comes out. With what ovation the jailed person is received today. So you have to say, it's a shame on this country. The country who believed in values, you have brought it to this condition where jailed people for their bad deeds are received with public ovation and re-elected in elections. A shameless situation. So Sri Rama studied repeatedly through the words of Sugriva. Tell me how you have been wronged. How you have been wronged. Why did your brother abduct your wife? Is he popular? How are the ministers? Then he found out that Wali was an isolated ruler. Does it not happen in the country today also? Many rulers, not elected properly by election, suddenly become prime ministers by a stroke, like the accidental prime ministers of this country. Accidental prime ministers are many. There was one in Karnataka too. There were many, like Chandrasekhar, if I have to mention the names, VP Singh, many other people. Many unelected people exercise powers like Sanjay Gandhi. It's a shame on democracy. There may be democracy, there may be idiocracy, there may be mobocracy, there may be mediocracy, all kinds of crises. These are all cynical philosophies disused because they don't produce the public wealth or public health. So Rama made himself assured that Wali was fit to be eliminated with a single stroke, surgical strike. There was no need for a public war with the Kishkinda people. So how did he do it? To give a modern example, he took to himself the position of a hangman, stood behind the person to be hanged, and just pulled the rope. I gave you this example deliberately because Wali asks Rama later on, if you were a hero, if a valorous person, why would you not fight me from before? Why only from behind? Rama says, I am only a hangman. You are sentenced. The sentence is given by Bharata, Ikshvaku. I am only a hangman. The hanged person does not have the right to ask the hanger, why did you stand behind me, and so forth. So this is the example. This is a very relevant point even today because people who don't read the Ramayana with depth but superficially, they put this question to people like me, why did Rama have to hide behind a tree and kill Wali if you were a real hero. This was a tactic, a political diplomacy. Why did Modi ji use the surgical operation? Why not an open war? An open war under the Geneva conditions has its own restrictions, its own modalities. It has to be notified, and the man who strikes the war has to pay the expenses and all that. See, there are so many things. People who don't read the Ramayana but who pass on other people's question to me, I direct them, go back to your person who asked you this question, ask him this. I am not here to answer all kinds of vague questions. In the case of Janasthan, where Khara had a cantonment of some 14,000 young boys, militant boys, Rama did not spare even one person. The great Govindaraja commentator points out, in Janasthan, not one person was spared. Ardha Adhika Muhurtena. In less than half an hour, all of them were killed, totally eliminated, because that was a prasanga of war. In Kishkinda, it was a prasanga of shiksha. Between shiksha, see, a good leader has to know the difference between a shiksha and a war. Now we are fighting with the disease called corona. You cannot afford to lose people. The economy has to be sustained. You see, so many aspects have to be weighed together. People have to be protected. Medicines have to be given, liberally given. But at the same time, bad rulers have to be eliminated, as in Bengal, as in Tamil Nadu, as in Kerala. That is the only example parallel I can give you today. A writer is like a doctor, has to feel the pulse of the patient. Without touching the body, without feeling the pulse, if you give some injection wrongly, the patient may die even before your own eyes. A political diplomat, a king like Krishna, Krishna was not a king for this purpose. A king like Rama had to study the nature of the whole country, the nature of all the people, and therefore he took the help of one militant Maharshi called Agastya. I have written a separate novel on Agastya. There are great Samhitas, Suktas by Agastya in the Rig Veda. I have to mention a difference, important difference here between the Munis and the Rishis. Many of you may not know the Muni culture, that of a monk, that of a hermit, a recluse, locking up himself in a cave or in a monastery, cutting off himself from the society. I am sorry to say he is of no use for the country. It is unfortunate that the Muni culture has spoiled this country. I have said this elsewhere, and I am happy Jaggi Vasudev and other people are on my side. They say the Buddha renounced his duty as a king, took to sannyasa, a Kshatriya taking to sannyasa, a forbidden code in the Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna wanted to become a sannyasi. Krishna said, you have no business to do it. It's like all the army people. If Ajit Doval becomes a sannyasi, what will happen to this country? Just imagine. If Vipin Rawat becomes a sannyasi, even while being the commander-in-chief, the chief of staff, if he becomes a sannyasi, what will happen? A sannyasi has his own goal of reaching his ultimate. It may be heaven, it may be God, it may be something else, I don't know. But rishis are of a different type. It is rishi culture that is represented in the Ramayana. There is no Muni here. There is only one example of an intercaste, the story of Shravana Kumara, a Shudra lady being married to a Vaishya gentleman who had an opportunity to practice what he wanted. But the question is, what was his contribution to the welfare of this country? If you ask me what is the contribution of Buddha to this country, the doctrine that dukkha is interminable. This cynicism once again, pessimism, Mahavira, Jainism, they taught ahimsa to the intolerable extent that Gandhiji put it into practice and partitioned the country. You see what happened. Muni culture has ruined this country. We want rishis, we want Agastyas, we want Vishwamitras, we want Jamadagnis, we want Atris, we want Kanvas. Atri was an old man. Incidentally, I may tell you, Agastya and Pulastya, the grandfather of Ravana, they were brothers. Agastya and Pulastya were brothers. But when it came to public health, Agastya did not hesitate to help Rama against Ravana and eliminate him for the public good. It was like Savarkar, it was like Shivaji, it was like Subhash Chandra Bose. It is the joint spirit of all these things that Modi represents today. It is 100 times of all these ideals put together that Rama represents. That is leadership. A leader should not consider his chair as a mere ornamental place. It is not a bhogastan. It is a karmastan. In the Arthashastra, Kautilya says a king has only 3 hours for public rest during nights. He has to wake up at 3 o'clock and listen to the Godacharas, the spies, collect information as to what is happening where, and then immediately go into action. I am told Modi ji sleeps for only 18 or 20 hours every day. So, yeah? Even less. He doesn't sleep. He sleeps only for 2-3 hours, I am told. See, what a great gift of God for us in this country, I don't know. You will not believe Rama spent a whole 14 years without having cooked food. Please understand. Vanaprastha does not eat cooked food, no rice, nothing. Only fruits, dried fruits, not dried fruits imported from America. Fruits dried then and there in the forest. Hmm? Hmm. And while he performed Shraddha of Dasharatha, he offered for Pinda these dried fruits. It is said in the Aranyakanda. And Rama weeps at the sight because my father would suddenly remember me in the forest and he will weep there. And therefore I am to respond, I am sorry, father, I am in this condition, I can't offer you better food, and so on. At every stage, you see Rama combining values of the family with the duties of the family with the duties of society. Combining the duties of society with the duties of the family is perhaps the greatest test of a great leader. So that is one aspect. So when you come to next after Vali, Ravana. Ravana was a warrior. I said he was a terrorist. What makes a terrorist? A terrorist is one who does not fight from before you, but who attacks you from behind, and who thinks that you are made weak by his invisible methods. Maya. We call this Maya. In Sanskrit, we call Maya. Maya means something beyond measurement. Mana dhyatiti Maya. Now, you will be shocked if I put you this question. What is the difference between Osama bin Laden and Ravana? When it comes to insatiated pleasure in killing people, Ravana and Osama bin Laden stand on the same foot. The Hurriyat people and the earlier Kashmiri rulers, they were all terrorists in the name of democracy. Modi removed the curtain, exposed them to the world. Without eliminating any leader in Kashmir, he exposed them to the world. Similarly, Rama did not punish Kaikeyi, he could have punished. He did not punish Amantara, he put them to shame by exposing them. Modi ji is doing the same thing. The opposition leaders are being exposed one by one. By contrast, by showing Abhivruddhi, by showing development, he puts the other people to shame, and the people will have to choose. In democracy, you can't have a better method. So Ravana, when Akampana and Shurpanaka meet him to report that Janasthana was devastated, Ravana is trembling with fear, and asked Shurpanaka, Avidham kincha Ramasya. What is the weapon with which Rama fought? Akampana says, who the hell knows all? All that he knew was that there was a bow in the hands of Rama, how he would draw the arrow, how he would shoot it, how he would put it. Nobody knew it. Can you imagine? Arrows becoming serpents, following the directions of the people who ran away in different directions and swallowed them. Ravana decides, no, direct fight with Rama is impossible. So this is kind of one kind of conquest. Rama conquered Ravana by this report. He made Shurpanaka report to Rama. Similarly, in the war field, there were two generals of Ravana's army, Shuka and Sarana. They were disguised as people in the army of Sugriva. They were sent by Maya across the sea. They were reported to find out the weak points in the army of Sugriva. But Rama's army was extremely disciplined. In spite of they being monkeys, as we commonly understand today, it was a highly disciplined army because Sugriva was a great commander. And even today in Karnataka, we remember him for Sugriva Agnya, not for Rama Agnya. We remember him for Sugriva. Within 1 month, you have to bring me the message where Sita is, how she is, whether she has been found or no. You have to bring me message. Sugriva. And therefore they had code words. In the army of Sugriva, they had code Varara Evanas Chinnam. Rama had told them, if any foreign envoy or a spy comes in, ask him what is your code word. Ravana did not know the code words of Rama's army. If they did not say Vandara, they would immediately kill him. Shuka and Sarana were about to be killed. And in order to save their skin, what did they do? They began to say, Jai Ram, Jai Ram, Shri Ram. They began. The word Jai Shri Ram is killing many people in Bengal. You see it. This great slogan. Jai Shri Ram is not a small thing. It's a great mantra. It's a great mantra. More greater than Jai Bharat. And therefore, they cried for help and they wanted Rama to intervene. Rama intervened and said to the generals under him, release them. He called them and said, Shuka, Sarana, I know your names. What do you want? They said, sir, my lord Ravana wants to know the weaknesses of the army. Well, he called Sugriva and said, take these people round your army and show all your prestiges, all your great points, all your vantage points. If there are any weak points, let them see. They found no weak points. It was a united army. It was totally united by one great ideal of serving Rama. That was the only great ideal. And when they came back to Rama and saluted, they said, now look here, he has sent you as his messengers. Now, what you have to do, if you want to save your life, you have to be my messengers. Go back to Rama and say to him what you have found here and that you are saved by me. Go and tell him. That is diplomacy. That is diplomacy. How Modi is handling China, how Modi is handling America, how particularly is handling Biden. These are all things to be understood because every country has a psychology. Every society has a psychology, not merely human beings. Every society has a psychology. And once you know the psychology, you know the weaknesses and the aspirations of the people. More particularly, you will know whether a government represents the people or no. If the government is not representative of the people, it is easy to disengage them, throw them out, as in Tamil Nadu. Tamil culture, temple culture, music culture, Bharatanatyam culture, and DMK culture, they don't go together. They have acquired power by backdoor methods. Rama knew how to acquire an army, how to defeat an army, and therefore, when Indrajit uses Maya, Vibhishana, he took Vibhishana for help. You see, Vibhishana was not a traitor. See, many people think that Vibhishana betrayed Ravana, and therefore Without Vibhishana, Rama could not have managed. No, totally wrong. Vibhishana, to save his country, took the refuge of Rama. He did not have any political ambitions. Please remember, Vibhishana did not have any political ambitions. Tyaktva Rajyancha, he says, Parityakta Maya Lanka, Dhananicha Vibhish. Huh? Then why have you come here? Sarvaloka Sharanyaya Raghavaya Mahatmane. I have come by abandoning the company of the bad people to take refuge and to rest, to spend the rest of my life. And therefore, Vibhishana was of great use, taking the help of the people, as many less informed people understand. He did not want to save himself. He wanted to save his own country from the clutches of a cruel ruler. Many people today, wonderful lawyers like Kapil Sibal, are not able to define who is a traitor. He is a traitor unfaithful to the government. He is a traitor unfaithful to the people. He is a traitor unfaithful to the culture of the country he represents. There are British laws still prevalent in this country, Defense of India rules and all that. Those rules don't apply because we don't have to be loyal to the British people any longer. You don't have to be loyal to even to the government if the government is wrong. The interests of the people are important. Unfortunately, people are not represented by the rulers. Then such a situation happened in Kishkinda. Such a situation happened in Ravana. Unfortunate women, thousands of women were weeping, Rakshasinam, Kule, Kule, at the doorsteps. They were cursing Ravana. They were saying, because of him, I lost my son. Because of him, I lost my brother. Because of him, I lost my husband. Ravana never considered the interests of the women folk in particular. He had no policy for public protection. He had no hospitals. When there were wounded soldiers on the warfield, his instruction was to throw them away into the sea. There was no camp for retrieving them back into help and so on. All this was totally different from Rama's policy. And therefore, a good ruler has to bridge so many aspects of public life into one. He has to set a good example as a ruler. The disciple of Sita is a different aspect of which I cannot speak in a few minutes today at the end of this lecture. A king, I will put it in a nutshell. It is not enough if a king is righteous. He must also look righteous. It is not enough if you are on the right path. You must also look to people that you are on the right path. You may be on the right path, but by bribing newspapers and TV channels, if you say you are right, you are right, you are right, so that does not make you right. You have to convince the people. The people were unconvinced in those days because long after Maricha died, there was a still brigade in his name. Maricha brigade was there. Long after Ravana died, Ravana followers went underground. Shurpankhá had an illegitimate son called Shambhuka. All of them conspired. They wanted to bring down Ramaraja for vengeance. And Sri Ramachandra therefore did not throw away Sita into an unknown place in a forest, but he sent very quietly her to her Valmiki's hermitage and supervised through his brothers all her requirements. And when Sita bore two sons, twin sons, Shatrughna was there. On the naming ceremony day, Shatrughna was there. Many people don't know this because they don't read Ramayana. It has become a fashion to ridicule Ramayana. But let me close by saying one anecdote. You may not have heard of one Thomas Gregg, a great Christian follower of Gandhi. Thomas Gregg. I don't remember the title of the book which he has written. Both in the introduction And at the concluding para, he says, India will not be India unless it is restored to Ramayana and Mahabharata. Unless the Indian people go back to the Ramayana and Mahabharata, India will not be India. The superficial India does not stand for anything. Now, during the early days of Corona, what did Modi do? He wanted people to stay at home. How did the people stay at home? He brought back B.R. Chopra. He brought back Ramanand Sagar's Ramayana. He brought back Vishnu Purana. It is these things which, unfortunately or fortunately, even Rajiv Gandhi had promoted. The first versions, telecast versions of Ramayana Mahabharata, they were done during Rajiv Gandhi's regime. A family which would not deviate into sense even by mistake. Somehow it happened. Bharat Bhagividata got it, and therefore the whole country was united. Even at railway stations, Muslim coolies would not lift up your luggage by saying, Sir, please wait, now Ramayana time, now Mahabharata time. So my prayer to all the viewers is, bring up your children in the culture of Ramayana and Mahabharata. Tell them the stories, not as mere stories, but with important cultural viewpoints here and there presented, emphasizing particularly the aspects I have now tried to lay before you. That would only bring the culture, country back to normalcy. My prayer to Lord Rama that He may bless you all on this auspicious day. Jai Sri Ram. Jai Sri Ram.